Yo, check out my website, www.theclowntimes.net. That's clown spelled with K as you see here. As you see, here are my rants here. I'll be more and more regular in posting rants in the future. You see what I have going on here. Also, you can also get your merch here at www.cafepress.com. Search for the Clown Time Sports. You see here I have sweatshirts, hoodies, baby gear, mugs, t-shirts. So just come on over and grab yourself some merch.
Welcome to this. It's been a damn wild edition of the Klown podcast. I'm Scott Perks. Lots of stuff with the holidays and everything else. Dwayne and I have been busy, but we're back in the saddle for you, and hopefully we'll not the show out of the park. But at any rate, please continue to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Even if you do not like what any of us have to say tonight, especially if you're FAMU fans, more on that in a moment. Please feel free to comment anyway, because in any event, you'll be glad you did, and I'll be glad you did because, either myself, Dwayne, whoever, we're going to go back and forth. It'll be a lot of fun, I promise. All right. So I already mentioned his name. You see him on my left. So from the Yard HBCU Sports, he's a creator. Let me start that again. He's the creator of the Yard/HBCU Sports Wrestling, all things HBCU Sports, as well as Sleazy Ritter every Tuesday now on Facebook Live and YouTube. And last but not least, check out his great work on HeroSports.com wrestling, all things FCS athletics as they pertain to HBCU sports. Dwayne Nash is back in the house. He has a lot to say about what's going on with HBCU athletics, especially football. And I teach the school already, but before we continue, Dwayne, it's been a long time, sir. How's it been going for you? How you been?
You know what? It's the 17th. And me saying this is still, in essence, me saying this anyway, but I'm going to say it. Might as well. Happy New Year, I guess.
Yeah. Happy very belated New Year. I mean, it's been a damn while, dude.
It has. And, I didn't want to say it because it is the 17th, but I haven't spoken to you in a new year. And me acknowledging it, in essence, is still me acknowledging that either way, Happy New Year. It's been a busy month for me. I'm just getting back to DC as of yesterday. I picked a perfect time to get back because, of course, it's a snowstorm here in DC.
Of course.
After leaving sunny California. But it still was in the 50s when I left California. So let's not get it completely twisted and say that it was nice and warm there, even though it was warmer there than it was here.
Yeah, well, it's in the teens today in Cincinnati. So that's like shorts and flip-flops weather in California as far as I'm concerned. And also, I had a thought that I lost it. I hate that when it happens. But it will come back to me. It'll come back to me. That's what I get from trying to be funny and just totally lose my train of thought after that. But whatever. But anyway, let's just get to it, man. Before we get to HBCU news, I got one thing to ask you.
Okay.
How about them Cowboys? How about them Cowboys getting their asses kicked to the 7th seed, Green Bay Packers, 48-32. The game wasn't even that close because we all know that the Cowboys scored twice in garbage time when I think it was 48-16. Yeah. So I'm happy. I'm footloose and fancy free. I don't have to worry about seeing Skip Bayless bloviate over how this is the Cowboys' year. I'm first to too many damn Cowboy fans. They're crying in their beers right now on Facebook. Skip Bayless been crying on TV. Michael Irvin is still pissed off. I don't know if we saw his Instagram live or whatever, when he was just mad, wanting to fight everybody in that Cowboys locker room. And you know what else? Jerry Jones decided in his infinite wisdom to keep Mike McCarthy. We have Bill Belichick and Mike Vrabel and possibly Mike Tomlin on the market. Glory be. Thank you, Jerry Jones, for continuing the so-called Jimmy Johnson curse for yet another year. That'll be, I think, what's it, 1996 minus? That'll be 28 years.
28 years.
When they hadn't reached the conference championship. Thank you, Jerry Jones. Thank you, football guys. Thank you, Cowboys fans, for being delusional over to the point of being let down once again. Hilarious.
Oh, Scott, I don't think you understand how entertaining that game was to me. Oh, no, you do understand. Being a Steelers fan, and you know that I'm a Commanders fan, of course. We understand how entertaining that game was.
Yes.
Even more so, I didn't get a chance to really troll the people who I really wanted to troll. Don't worry, they're going to get their comeuppance some sooner than others. But yeah, flying back home and knowing it was going to be cold when I got back to DC, my heart was slightly warmed when I had my I had a changeover in Dallas Fort Worth Airport.
Uh-oh.
And as I got off the plane and I came up the ramp, the first thing I saw to my right was a gift shop. And all I saw was the sad stars in the darkness of the store because it was closed. The store was closed we landed around 5 a.m. their time.
Okay.
But it just seemed like such a fitting setting as the lights went out in Dallas on that star. It doesn't shine anymore because we don't have to deal with them in the playoffs. And it was just such a fitting sight. And it just made my heart just that much warmer. And I smiled just a little bit throughout my fatigue. But either way, you're right. It's just another postseason, we don't have to hear from that fan base about how this is their year. And my God, it seems like the movie Groundhog Day, where once again, we're going to go through this whole big thing all over again about how it's their year come June, July.
Yeah.
Only for us to be right back in the same space come January 2025.
You know what? I'm going to sum up your thoughts right now. When the fan used to say about the Cleveland Browns, is that when he passes, he hopes, like, he's looking forward to his funeral because he knows that the Cleveland Browns will let him down one last time. That's what Cowboys fans feel right now. It's like you said Groundhog Day. I say it's the definition of insanity. They've been going on for the past 28 years and counting. It's our year. It's our year. It's our year. Like when Philadelphia choked away the division, and God, they may be losing their coach too, but that's another story for another time. But nevertheless, and they got the asses beat by Tampa Bay, by the way, in the first round of the playoffs. But nevertheless, again, shout out to Lenise Robinson, like a homegirl, Philadelphia Eagles fan. I'm praying for you. It's like everything was set up for these cowgals to make a little bit of noise. They had the 2 seed. They were gifted with the 2 seed to right to play a 7-seeded young green-ass, no pun intended, Green Bay Packers squad. Okay, with an even greener quarterback in Jordan Love, only to have him carve up that alleged top 5 defense, right? And then what made it funnier was right before halftime, remember when Dallas was on that drive where they're down 20-0, and then Dak threw that interception, which the safety baited him. He baited him. He went, pretended like he was going to his left, then he cut right at the last minute because he knew where the ball was going to CeeDee Lamb. Took it, house call, pick 6, game over, 27-0. And by the way, speaking of before halftime, Dallas had no damn business scoring a touchdown before halftime because that should have been a false start.
Yeah.
That should have been a false start. It should have been 27-0 head to the halftime. But nevertheless, it didn't matter. They still got their asses beat by a 7 seed, a young 7 seed at that in the Packers. So all that talk about Dallas possibly getting their revenge against the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, over. And by the way, it's a good thing that they probably did lose because Detroit was looking forward. They were said to be looking forward to playing Dallas because they should have beat Dallas in the first place. They got robbed. But the point is and plus, Dan Campbell, get the damn extra point. Just get the damn extra point. But that's not a here nor there. That's a big. But Detroit wanted them back because Detroit knew that they could play with. They knew they should have beat, even if the game would be in Dallas. But they're happy hosting the second round game against the Buccaneers. But it's just funny to me that Detroit got their first playoff win in 30 some odd years before Dallas got back to the NFC Championship game in 28 years. That is hilarious. Detroit hasn't won a playoff game since the Clinton administration.
No, they haven't. They have not. No.
1993, that was the last time they won a playoff game. Or was it 92? But I forgot.
Technically, it was the 91 season.
91, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was their path to getting beat by Washington as the Redskins. The then Redskins were on their way to Super Bowl. I forget what number that was, but it was the one that was won by Mark Rippon, led by Mark Rippon, to where they blew out the Bills that year. Super Bowl 27, if my math is correct. But yeah, that was the last time that they won a playoff game.
Clinton, though. That was before Clinton in 91. Because
technically, yes, that was before Clinton. That was still Bush administration.
That's the first Bush administration.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a long time. That's a long time. But anyway, happy for Detroit. Giddy about Dallas, getting blown out by 7th seed, and then holding on, retaining their head coach was even funny. I know Cowboy Nation like, are you serious? Skip Bayless was beside himself because he knew what was coming. He knew that Jerry Jones was going to hang on to him because he likes him being McCarthy, even though better coaches were out on the market. So,
but you know what that does for me? You know what that says to me, though? It says to me that Jerry Jones is not willing to relinquish control of that team as it pertains to decision making on the field. You know, if you talk about your Mike Tomlins, you talk about your Bill Belichick's, and probably even Mike Vrabel, right? Mm-hmm. These are guys who seem to be, well, I know for sure, at least Belichick, guys who want to have some sort of say-so,
right,
in what ingredients you bring to the kitchen that you want to cook, if you want to continue to use that analogy, right?
Right.
And it's been said before in the past that Jerry Jones does not want to relinquish that responsibility. This just shows me again that he still doesn't want to do so. And that, to me at least, he's still he's content with what this team is going to be, because teams around him are going to get better. They're not going to get worse. And I'm still waiting to see what you're going to do as the owner of the Cowboys to make this team better. But we're not going to sit here and bloviate about this team. This is not what we do.
Right.
In this space, you know, we for another time we'll get to that. But I do want to say these things real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
I want to thank the Cowboys for making my time in the last week of the season, the regular season, and the first week of the playoffs so enjoyable. You helped my Commanders get the number 2 overall draft pick. We now have a competent GM. And I did get an opportunity to watch the Dallas Cowboys get eliminated from the playoffs all within a week's time. Thank you, God.
I should bring that back to a slow clap because that was great. That was look, that made me, even though my Steelers were overmatched against Buffalo Bills, I'm impressed that we scored 17 points with Mason Rudolph at Buffalo, by the way. But it made the whole weekend worth it seeing Dallas in a blowout fashion. Make all these fans out here cry. These unsuccessful Cowboys fans cry. That's what made it all worth it. I don't give a damn if we were lost 63 to nothing to Buffalo. It just made my week knowing that there's a fan base with delusional expectations of a team that should have been at least in the NFC divisional round at the very least.
At the very least.
Flame out in a spectacular fashion against the Packers in a blowout. I don't care if it was 48-32. It was a blowout. 2 touchdowns in garbage time. It was 38-16, if I'm not mistaken, before that. With like 2 minutes and change left. It was a damn blowout. It was a damn blowout. So shout out to the Packers. Coach LaFleur, Jordan Love, that young squad, Aaron Jones, toting the rock, that defense coming to play this young. Shout out to them. You're probably going to get your asses beat in San Francisco, but shout out to you anyway for doing God's work and taking out, quote unquote, America's team in the process in the first.
So 2 things real quick. One, you know, of course, since we didn't touch on it, since we're still talking about it. First ever number 7 seed to advance in the NFL playoffs.
That's correct.
That's number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, since you brought up his name, I have to touch on this because every time he or his compadres, Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan are on the field, they always talk about that infamous coaching staff under Mike Shanahan in Washington. And all of those assistants that were there that have gone on to go do great things. Now, LaFleur, Shanahan, and McVay may not have been able to get the job done in D.C., but they got it done elsewhere. And shout out to those former Redskin assistants that get it done in the playoffs now. And in this case, with LaFleur, eliminate those Cowboys. Yeah. Thank you, player. You may not have been able to do it here, but you made my heart happy elsewhere.
There you go. Thank you. There you go. And speaking of surprises, let's touch on a little bit about this news before we get to the big news later on. It's Cris Dishman, former Houston Oiler, speaking of which, Washington Redskin. I still feel comfortable saying that name, but that's not here nor there. Played
you
with
and me
Chiefs.
both, brother. You and me
there
both.
You go. It's going to happen. We grew up saying that name, but nevertheless, playing for the Chiefs and playing for Vikings as well. 2-time All-Pro, 2-time Pro Bowler, 43 interceptions for his career. Damn good player. Hated him when he was with the Oilers in the House of Pain, but that's another story for the time. But he was named as head coach of the Texas Southern University from the SWAC. So this came as a footnote to the other stuff we're going to talk about later on tonight. But at any rate, props to him, and hopefully he gets a good staff around him so that he can, make some magic at Texas Southern. I guess Texas Southern, like maybe the other college programs, have been playing copycat, watching what Coach Prime did at Jackson State, hoping that Cris Dishman does the same. Though Cris Dishman is not the same name, obviously, as Deion Sanders, but they're both corners. They're both former All-Pros. They're both former Pro Bowlers. So he resides in the area anyway because he's originally a Houston Oiler. So maybe he'll get some interest. Maybe he turns that Texas Southern program around. What are your thoughts on the Cris Dishman hire?
Well, what I'm not going to do is, I can't criticize his move, but so much, because I don't know what he's going to be capable of doing at Texas Southern. What I will say though is, and that some of other things I'll touch on a little bit later, because there seems to be a parallel between the hiring of Dishman at Florida A&M and at Texas Southern, and what's currently going on at Florida A&M. But as it pertains to the hire, it's a decent hire. I don't think it's better than the hire that they could have had with former Alcorn State head coach Fred McNair, because we know he's a known entity as a head coach, especially within the SWAC, based upon his history there. Right. We don't necessarily know what Cris Dishman can do as a head coach on any level because he hasn't done it, even though he has 18 years of coaching experience in the CFL, the USFL, the XFL, NFL Europe, and in the collegiate ranks. He's never been a head coach before. So this will be his first foray in doing so. Like you said, hopefully he's able to get assistants in to help them out and also get the players in to help them be competitive in the SWAC to see exactly how he does. But, that benchmark he has to surpass is at least 5 wins from last year. 5 wins being the most wins they've had since 2014. Wow. And they've only done it once. Wow. So if he can at least do that, he's taking this program into the right direction. But they've already lost their star quarterback in Andrew Body. And I know they've lost players to graduation and probably most other players as well to the transfer portal with this new head coach coming in. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Dishman builds this program. And hopefully he gets enough time to do so in a program that has seen little success, if any. And the last time they actually had a winning season was 2000 when they were 8-3.
Wow, that's been that long? That's 24
I'm sorry,
years.
I take that back.
Okay.
I take that back. I forget about the infamous 2011 year when they went 9-3.
Okay.
but they had that championship taken back from them in 2011.
Oh, so does
So
that
yeah, so
that season even count? I mean, I guess technically it may not have count, but we have eyes, so we saw that it counted. But still, that's 13 years.
yes, so it's been a minute since they've had football above 500 there in Houston, and it looks like both parties, the AD and the Board of Regents, got what they wanted. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we talk about the FAMU situation as well.
Yeah. So speaking of Houston, that's in the recruiting hotbed, and obviously they can't give us so many players being the FCS level, but still they could get some of those apples off the ground that fall from the tree, so to speak. So hopefully, Dishman bring that Houston Oilers cachet, his background, and again, it comes down to his coaching staff. Got to have the right coaching staff in place to help develop these players and help change it, bring about a different culture. Because as far as according to your stats you gave me about regarding like winning records or lack thereof, they're going to need a huge change. So we'll see about that. But before we get to FAMU, I'm gonna give a shout out to my sponsor, BetUs.com. So listen to those sports bettors. Your favorite sports book, BetUs.com, is back for our 30th year of NFL action, about the 31st year. But anyway, with the industry's biggest sign-up bonus up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in all your favorite sports, including NFL, UFC, and MLB. And if you're looking for live in-game betting, incredible odds with daily odds, boosters, props, and parlays, got them. How about fast payouts and exceptional one-on-one customer service, rather? We got that too. So long as to BETUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BET-US. You can use the promo code TKT for the Klown Times as well. BetUS.com, where the game begins. All right, man. Speaking of total shit show, we talked about the Cowboys earlier. This is the crazy stuff that's going on in Tallahassee at FAMU, man. Florida A&M, for those you don't know. There's a write-up on WTXL, Tallahassee ABC affiliate, on WTXL.com, rather. It's an article written by Shamaria Morrison about the FAMU's timeline for finding its next head coach, football coach, gets pushed back, seeing why that's the case. It pretty much laid out that there was an almost 3-hour board of trustees meeting this past Tuesday. FAMU leaders said that the new head coach, football coach, will be named before February 7th. Why that long? FAMU also will likely spend thousands of dollars on a search firm for its next head football coach. And just to give you an idea, apparently FAMU's athletic director, Tiffany Dawn Sykes, has been on a hot seat on the hiring of a new football head coach because the previous one, Willie Simmons, left to be on Manny Diaz's staff at Duke. So that came out. I guess they were. I mean, you never prepare for a coach leaving, but going to join being an assistant at the Power 5 level, that's something different. But basically, the FAMU Alumni Association are not happy with Dawn Sykes. As a matter of fact, they wanted her to resign because Curtis Johnson Jr., the president of FAMU's National Alumni Association, said that over the last couple of weeks, the alumni have spoken in many languages: pride, championship support, confusion, and even disappointment. That's a quote. And he also revealed that the association voted they had no confidence in AD Sykes at a previous board meeting. So what in the world is going on? Because basically the criticism came after days of backlash from key stakeholders at FAMU, which includes obviously the donors, the board of trustee members, and even the football players. And the football players, speaking of which, wants an assistant to be the interim or more than the interim. So all this is going on. Sykes may not be able to hold on to a job. She hadn't been there for only a hot second. So, Dwayne, what the hell is going on at FAMU?
Well, I'm going to start this by giving 2 disclaimers.
Okay.
Number one, I've known of and have had short interactions with Tiffany Dawn Sykes
Okay.
dating back to about maybe 2011, 2012. So the early years, the infancy of the yard HBCU sports, if you will.
Okay.
And I mean, coming from a fan standpoint, where she would, just have conversations with me about her thoughts about HBCU athletics. So I've known of her for at least a decade, and I've followed her path to Florida A&M. And I have been a fan of hers and championed her movement throughout her entire career. So I have that, along with the fact that, as I've said numerous times on this show, I am an alum of North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University.
Yep.
And it is known that we do have Florida A&M as one of our rivals. And a lot of times within this rivalry, things can get extremely petty. I will attempt my best to not be petty when making this discussion. But, and I put this but in here, because of this, like you said earlier, and like I've heard others say as well, who are not Florida A&M alums, this situation from a distance looks weird and it looks bad for HBCUs. This isn't a lone criticism of mine. This is a criticism of others who are not Florida A&M alums or fans of the Rattlers who questions what's going on in Tallahassee. Because from a distance, we can't fully understand what is happening there.
Yeah.
So with that said, I'm going to try to approach this with the knowledge that I have and understanding of what has been going on over the past month down there in Tallahassee. And to you're right, this is also still the infancy of Miss Sykes' term down there in Tallahassee as well. She's only been there a year.
Yeah, a hot second.
She's only been there a year. And there are some who questioned her hire, are questioning her hiring now, which is kind of odd. They didn't question it when from my perspective, from what I saw, it didn't seem to be a question of her hiring when she was first brought in. Because if you looked at her credentials, and I know there's some that have questioned her past because she was not an AD elsewhere, but she's been an associate AD in other places, her last stop being Dartmouth. She has a root in the process of APR. And my guess was when she was hired was to come in and help out Florida A&M, who has been having APR issues since the turn of the decade almost. But with the departure of Willie Simmons, fresh off of something that Florida A&M, that you and I and those that have been following HBCU football, primarily FCS, HBCU football, FCS football, and HBCU football over the past, 9 years since the inception of the Celebration Bowl. This is something that the Rattlers have wanted to win ever since its inception.
Badly, yeah.
Badly.
Yeah.
Especially after A&T won it first.
Right.
They've been wanting to win this thing badly. They even had the infamous national championship year of 2019 where they dubbed themselves national champions. But I digress. See, that was a little bit of petty there. I'm sorry. I said I wouldn't be, and that peaked out. But they finally get the national championship, do so in dominating fashion with that fourth quarter performance by that defense. And in my eyes, if you're asking me, Willie Simmons, if there was a Mount Rushmore for head coaches of football from Florida A&M, Willie Simmons would be that fourth spot. You talk about your Billy Joes that's won a black college football national championship. You talk about Jake Gaither. Jake Gaither, another black college football national champion. And you also talk about Joe Taylor. All four of those guys have done something no other coach in FAMU history has ever done, which is win at least 9 games in 4 straight years. No one else has done that. Something else Willie Simmons has done that no one else has done is win 12 games in a season. He happened to do it on the anniversary that Rudy Hubbard won the FCS national championship back in 1978.
Hmm.
So I understand the pain and anguish that they went through by losing Willie Simmons in a move that was said by some to be on a trajectory for him to fulfill a dream of his, which appears to me that he wants to be at least an FBS level coach. That's the way it sounds to me.
Right.
Now, I could be wrong about
Nothing
this.
wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong about that whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But he's reached what he felt as though was his accomplishment or major accomplishment at FAMU. He got an opportunity to take the job at Duke, which he believes is going to be a stepping stone to help him reach an ultimate goal of his, which I perceive to be an FBS head coach. Yeah. Because we've seen through history, without the exception of Deion Sanders, and we already know that he is a one of one.
That's correct.
Not just because of this accomplishment, but because of who he is as a person and athlete. This dude is literally a one of one. Right? The only HBCU head coach to coach a Power 5 program ever. And that's only because his name is Deion Sanders.
Correct.
Let's be real. So Willie probably understands that if he wants to be an FBS coach, he's going to have to go through the ranks on the FBS level to attain that dream. So wonderful for him. Mm-hmm. But the thing is now, since the Rattlers have tasted success in Tallahassee, they want to continue that ride, and rightfully so. They want to achieve an accomplishment that only one other institution has achieved, and that's, of course, North Carolina A&T, which is to win back-to-back Celebration Bowl championships. They wanted to go ahead and strike while the iron was hot, and they were. They were starting to get transfers from Florida State and other institutions to come in before Willie left. Now, since his departure, not only have some of those players left, but now some coaches and also their recruiter has left. And he's now joined the ranks over at Colorado with Deion Sanders. So it's going to be very tough for this program where it currently stands to repeat. But if you listen to A.D. Sykes and her process of what she wanted to do, she wanted to not only get a head coach of championship caliber, she wanted to bring in someone that was going to help this team win both on and off the field. Again, you're talking about someone in Sykes who was brought in during a time frame where this football team has been dealing with academic issues off the field. So that's most definitely in the forefront of her mind. There's some that believe that the candidate that she pushed forward towards the Florida A&M president and to the board of trustees to attempt to hire current Fort Valley head coach Sean Gibbs. There's some that believe that Gibbs and Sykes are friends. And this is something that we've never, it's not like nepotism is new. It's not.
Right. We see this a lot in college sports.
We see this a lot.
Yeah.
But if you go under the surface and you don't have to go deep, you add Gibbs along with a couple of other things, which I see now to be mute points here, where they talked about how they felt as though there wasn't enough transparency, especially after Sykes asked alumni to raise money, which they did, which was going to be about $50,000 to add to the salary of the head coach, or I guess for Willie Simmons at least, to stay at Florida A&M, but he chose to go elsewhere. So because of those donations, there are some that believe, well, not some, there are a lot that believe that the Florida A&M NAA there should be some sort of transparency from A.D. Sykes to not only the NAA, but to the fan base as a whole towards the hiring of the new head coach. And because there was that lack of transparency and lack of communication, along with they complained about her rejecting to renew the contract with the Orange Blossom Classic, which is the game that's played in Miami, Florida, down in Miami during Labor Day weekend, and the raising of ticket prices as issues with AD Sykes, and they had a vote of non-confidence for her. But if you look at a lot of the feedback and a lot of complaints, for whatever reason, the conversation about the OBC, the Orange Blossom Classic, and the ticket prices seem to go out the window, and it seems to be that everybody's more so focused on the hiring Sean Gibbs. If you look into Gibbs's history, look into his past, like I said before, he was the head coach at Fort Valley State, but before then, he was an assistant at North Carolina A&T. And before leaving A&T to become the head coach at Fort Valley State, their final game against A&T, which took place in Tallahassee, started out with an infamous brawl. The reason why I say it was infamous is because not only were athletes involved, a coach was involved. Scott, can you guess who that coach was?
Not this guy that's trying to bring in the FAMU.
Scott Gibbs. Yes, it was him.
Wow.
So, because of this association that Gibbs has with Sykes, and because of his role within that fight, FAMU alums want nothing to do with Coach Gibbs whatsoever, regardless of the fact that he was on a coaching staff for all of those Celebration Bowl victories, and that he had a 9-3 record this past season at Fort Valley State, along with being the head coach of the inaugural winners for being the head coach for the winners of the inaugural Florida Beach Bowl Classic that happened this past December.
That is so funny. I mean, the pettiness. They just don't want anyone associated with ANT. That's what it boils down.
Because that's what the conversation that's been thrown out there, that's been had, is the conversation that's been floating around is that, it would be better if they hired someone who had a connection, preferably someone currently on staff, or at least a Florida A&M alum that has a connection with these current players, so they can run this thing back and win a back-to-back championship, regardless of Coach Gibbs' pedigree and his past, right? Because if you look at his accomplishments on paper, you would think that he would be one that would be a fitting head coach any place else.
He's successful. Very
right?
successful. Yeah.
But I do agree with those that are the deterrents and detractors of Coach Gibbs in this process by saying that they felt as though there should have been at least a wider net cast.
Sure.
There seems to be an understanding that only 2 names were submitted to the Board of Trustees. One of those that AD Sykes kind of advised the Board of Trustees to lean towards, which was Coach Gibbs. They felt as though that at least and I agree, there should have been some sort of conversation, at least with the Willie Simmons' staff,
right,
to be interviewed for that position, along with taking suggestions from Coach Simmons as well. I do agree with that. But there's something about your AD being hired and being trusted to do this job.
Right.
It's very rare that I've ever heard of a fan base. And not to say it hasn't happened, because there have been cases in which fan bases have been vocal before in a potential hire and it doesn't go through. This isn't unprecedented. It's just rare. that the candidate that has been advised by AD has been this criticized openly, and to the point of also, and again, it's just an advisement, not necessarily a hiring. This is just who she advised the Board of Trustees that they should hire. But all of that said, it just seems to be just a big mess coming from down in Tallahassee, as like you said before, the lack of confidence, with the vote of non-confidence from the NAA, and then this 3-hour Board of Trustees meeting, like you said, just happened. With all of this, God, so this is just tiresome from someone looking from the outside, from someone on the outside looking in, because now you still don't have a head coach. And now, because of the complaints, a search committee has to be established. And you're trying to hire a head coach, like you said earlier, Scott, by National Signing Day, which is Wednesday, February 7th, which is 3 weeks away. And Sykes wants to make sure that this search committee interviews donors and former players and key people from Florida A&M before they even compile this list of candidates to bring forward to the Board of Trustees, so they can hire a head coach and have all of this done within 3 weeks.
All right, so let me ask you this question to put a red bow on this podcast.
All right.
In particular, what's the end game? What do you see as the end game? What do you predict will happen? Whether it be who the hell they're going to bring in to coach the football squad, what's going to happen with the future of AD Sykes, and just what's the end game here? What do you predict will be end game here? What's going to happen here within the next 5 months before football season?
Yeah, the only thing that I can really kind of have a bigger hold on what's going to happen more than anything else is that the FAMU NAA is going to try to do their best to get rid of Tiffany Dawn Sykes.
I agree with that. I don't think she's back at all. I think she's neutered. They're going to they're trying to neuter her. And I mean, I don't see her being back as AD by like in a month's time even. I don't think it's going to happen. I agree with you with that. I think she's gone.
Now, I don't know how quickly it happens, but if you look at the recent history, not only of their football head coaches, but of their ADs and presidents there at FAMU since the turn of the century, there's been a lot of turnover there. There's been a lot of instability as it pertains to athletics there in Tallahassee. And they just can't seem to get this thing right. And I can't come up with a legitimate reason, a concrete legitimate reason why all of this should make sense.
Right.
As like I said before, as much as I do agree with the fan base that there should be some transparency there. And I also agree that yes, you should try your best to try to win as many championships as possible.
Right.
But you don't want to rush this process. I understand, or you really had no choice but to rush this process because of the timing of the resignation, and because of the climate of college football right now, with everyone taking the opportunity to jump into the portal. You got to move swiftly to try to bring in someone that's going to be able to not only keep your players, your good players there in Tallahassee, but also attract new good players to your program and have a viable program again once again on and off the field. Because that's AD Sykes' job, is to not only bring in champions on the field, but bring in champions off the field. You're going to want championships won and graduates as well. But for those who are the complaints about Gibbs, he's not an FAMU alum and he hasn't won. The dude, he was 9-3 last year, but Thing is, though, one of those losses was to former Florida A&M great and current Albany State head coach, Quinn Gray. And they bring that up as, oh my God, it's head-to-head situation between Gray and Gibbs. Gray should be the better head coach because he beat him head-to-head.
Right.
Scott, can you guess what that score was? 13-7, Scott.
Oh, it was a close game.
13-7.
Man.
Because Fort Valley State gave up 13 points late in the fourth quarter. Actually, it was to be more specific, a late turnover late in the fourth quarter that led to a touchdown. That led to them beating them by 6. The way they were talking, you would think they blew them out. Exactly.
That's I was thinking they mopped the floor with them, mopped the field with them. It's wow. They just don't want him. They just don't want him. And that's fine. That's their prerogative, but damn, you don't have to be so petty about it.
I understand if you don't want the guy. And I understand if you potentially want a FAMU great in there to help you win a national championship. I get it. But can we be realistic here? The last FAMU great to come in there as a head coach and lead this team to a championship was Ken Riley. How did Earl Holmes work out for you down there at FAMU?
Former Steeler, by the way, but yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
You know, and again, they've had Alex Wood, another head coach they brought in through a search committee, I might add. That had head coaching experience someplace else that came in and was trash down at FAMU. So, I mean, I'm going to need y'all to, all of these things that you guys want done from AD Sykes, and I get it. I just want you to know that this process or those processes haven't worked for you in the past. Not to say that it won't work now, but I'm just saying you guys are critical of a process because you don't like her and you don't like her candidate. But you want things done, and those things ain't worked for you in the past either. So, it just boggles my mind. And this, along with what happened down at Texas Southern, is just a situation where the ADs, the people who have been hired who've been put in the power to handle situations, are not being trusted to do such jobs.
Crazy. That's crazy. Well, on that note, where can people find you and your great work on social media?
Man, y'all know where to find me by now. If not, and this is your first time watching, if this is your first time watching, welcome. But if you don't know where to find me by now, you can find me at the Yard HBCU on all social media platforms. And I got to say this too. I welcome any healthy debate about this situation that's going on at Florida A&M that will help me understand fully. Because if there's anything that I've said that I was completely wrong about, or sounds as if I'm completely uninformed about, I'm most definitely here to have those discussions. Most definitely. But if you're just telling me that I'm wrong because you don't like what I'm saying, that's another, without any facts, keep it moving. I just want some healthy debate, because what I'm hearing, again, I understand some of those points, but a lot of those, it sounds like a fan base who is just hungry to win again and doesn't like the fact that this AD, who some of you don't like anyway, and I'm doing my hardest not to scream misogyny here, but I had a feeling that if anything went wrong, unlike past ADs, and let's be realistic about this, unlike past ADs, well, with the exception of Gaucher, who was under investigation, my God, she was most definitely going to be heavily criticized by some of the hires that she's made, good, bad, or indifferent, where other ADs have also made bad hires as well. And those men have not been criticized like this before. So again, I would love to have that healthy conversation with anyone, anywhere that's willing to help me understand why this process isn't crazy. Because now I don't know, man. I don't. I just don't want our flagship, the programs within our flagship institutions, and you guys can argue about who those institutions are in your own time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see them go through this type of mess. And this is something that FAMU has been dealing with for well over 20 years straight now.
Yeah. All right. And also HeroSports.com, right? HeroSports.com.
Yes. Again, follow me, reach out to me at the Yard HBCU, all platforms, be it Twitter X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, the Yard HBCU. You can reach me there. And then, of course, as always, during the season, you can read my articles about HBCU FCS football on HeroSports.com.
All right, y'all. There you have it. Insight right here. And I'm sure there'll be some debate against, like, from some FAMU alums. We welcome it. We'll post this bad boy on YouTube and Facebook. So get your popcorn ready. I'm sure FAMU alums going to be record shop, but it is what it is. But until then, thank y'all for tuning in to the podcast. Thank you to my man, Dwayne Nash, for bringing the heat. As always, keep pointing the wrong way. Anyway, please continue to like, comment, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel, because at the end of it, you'll be glad you did, and I'll be glad you did. So until next time, take care, have a good night, and stay warm out there in these streets.